Good. Okay, it's 2 o'clock, and we'll call this meeting of the Brunswick County Board of Elections to order. This is the regularly scheduled March the 21st March meeting, and with that, we'll have our pledge of allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one indivisible, liberty and justice for all. Thank you. This time we have approval of the agenda. Any changes, corrections, or
Mr. Chairman,
yes, sir.
I'd like to suggest a change to the agenda, please.
Okay.
Under new business, we were going to talk about the Brunswick County Board of Commissioners resolutions from yesterday. Since we have some members of the audience, I think, who were probably want to speak to that today, I'd like to try to move that item up to the spot before public comment, please, so we can get all the information out on the table.
I can move the item, Mr. Pelton, to after public comments. We know it's coming up, and if we're trying to head off public comments by adjusting the agenda and just trying to shut the discussion down, then I don't necessarily. I'd be glad to move it to after public comments.
I'm not trying to shut the item down.
It's a pleasure to the board.
I'm trying to provide as much clarity to the public as possible.
Okay, what's the pleasure of the board? I got a motion to change the agenda to move a matter. What's the matter?
New business, item A under new business.
Brunswick County Board of Commissioners resolution regarding private money in Brunswick County elections.
Yes, sir.
Okay, I got a motion to amend the agenda head of public comment to item 7A. Motion, any further discussion? If not, all in favor of the motion by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed?
No.
No. Agenda stands prepared. Any further discussion about any other changes to the agenda? If not, everybody's had an opportunity to review the minutes of February 21st regular scheduled meeting. You received those electronically. Any changes or corrections or deletions or otherwise items to be brought to the matter of the February agenda, February minutes? If not, I hear a motion.
Motion to approve.
Got a motion. Any further discussion? If not, all in favor of the motion, by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Item number 4, public comments. Anybody in the audience that wishes to address the public, anybody in the audience that would like to address the board regarding any matter at this time, please step forward and state your name.
Good afternoon, everybody. My name is John Schellenberger.
How you spell it?
SCHELLEN, B as in boy, ERGER.
Thank you, Mr. Schellenberger.
I'd like to see if you can't clear up something that's been confusing. There were 2 organizations that you were attached to. One was the Election Assistance and the other was the Alliance.
Sir.
You cleared up some of the questions with the Alliance with the thing in the back, but what's the difference between the 2 of them? What do we get from them? What do we give to them? And what are our goals for that?
We'll be discussing that thoroughly with the director here shortly.
I understand.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. Anybody else that'd like to address the board regarding?
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Miss.
I just want to make
Everybody knows your name, Miss.
Yes.
Sykes.
I hope they do.
Commissioner Sykes. Please. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good afternoon. Thank you, Chairman, and board members. Thank you for allowing me to speak today. For some time, I have expressed my concern to my staff and about the Brunswick County Board of Elections accepting and receiving private money for conducting elections. Currently, our Brunswick County, y'all have signed an agreement, or Sarah has, with the U.S. Alliance for Election Excellence and Center for Technology and Civic Life, which is funded by the Zuckerbucks. For the ones that, Zuckerbucks, which is Zuckerberg, who owns Facebook, is the money flowed from there to these nonprofits.
Okay.
For the ones that don't know, the U.S. Alliance for Election Excellence is a nonprofit organization receiving nothing more than dark money fueled to push liberal voting policies and influence election administrations in key states. This influence has no place in our elections, especially since our Board of Elections has always done a great job. And the citizens of Brunswick County deserve the integrity and the security of our ballots. Since the aftermath of 2020 election, Americans, including Democrats, Republicans, and unaffiliated, remain concerned about the integrity of their elections and the security of their ballots. The Rasmussen report, which I gave you, which is a polling report that is used by political groups across the USA, only Democrats voted with the statistics I'm about to give you. There's 41% of Democrats said cheating likely affected the 2020 election. 62% of those Democrats are against Zuckerbucks type election spending. And 90% say it's important to prevent cheating in elections. This is a concern for all our voters. It's not just Republican. It's not as bipartisan. At this time, I would like to put it on record that I am opposed to the agreement and the money being received by our county. As you know, there was a bill in the Senate last year, Senate Bill 725. And so I'm standing here saying I support Senator Bill Rabon, Representative Charlie Miller, and Representative Frank Eiler's votes and efforts for trying to prohibit any funding. There is also an outstanding bill for this year that is Senate Bill 89 that is on the floor. And I just want to say I appreciate everything you do. And I think if you read these statistics, will show you where the country stands on these issues. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Any other citizens wishing to be, anybody in the audience that wishing to address the board at this time? Not. If not, Madam Director, you have anybody electronically that?
Yes, I have a few comments online, so I will read those to you now. The first one is from Jenny Quaglia, and her statement is, the Center for Tech and Civic Life, CTCL, a Chicago, Illinois-based center-left election reform advocacy group formed in 2012, created the U.S. Alliance for Election Excellence in early 2022. CTCL is notably financed by Mark Zuckerberg and his wife, Priscilla Chan. These funds are commonly known as Zuckerbucks, which came to prominence in the 2020 election cycle. Zuckerberg issued $350 million to hundreds of county and city elections officials in 47 states. Brunswick County was specifically targeted to be a recipient, according to several prominent national and state news articles. Many states, 26 as of January 20th, 2023, have made such private contributions illegal, and many other states are working on bills to do the same. In fact, the North Carolina legislature is currently working on Senate Bill 89, which would make these private funds illegal. Earlier this year, it was discovered that the Brunswick County Board of Elections signed an agreement with the U.S. Alliance for Election Excellence and CTCL to receive funds for our county election office, and many concerned citizens would like that contract nullified. Many citizens agree that this outside influence has no place in our elections. I am very concerned that we are not seeing the big picture. No money given from outside sources comes without strings attached. Newly revealed documents shed light on the left's latest attempt to influence our election process here in Brunswick County. The Honest Elections Project has obtained, and the John Locke Foundation has reviewed communications between the U.S. Alliance for Election Excellence and our own election officials here in Brunswick. Among other ways of payback for CTCL's investment in our county, our office is expected to provide substantial in-kind contributions to the Alliance at taxpayer expense that include helping the Alliance develop its programming. The Alliance is gathering detailed information on the inner workings of our elections office and developing improvement plans to reshape the way our office operates. We must protect our country from allowing, our county, from allowing partisans to influence our elections. Please sever this current contract and prevent it from rearing its ugly head in the future. Okay, the next comment is from Tom Russell. And it reads, it was brought to my attention that our Brunswick County Board of Elections has entered into a contractual agreement with an advocacy group called the Center for Tech and Civic Life and the U.S. Alliance for Election Excellence. It is widely known that they are funded by Mark Zuckerberg. Based on what we know about Mr. Zuckerberg and his role in the 2020 elections, I find it incomprehensible that such an agreement with these organizations would be allowed in Brunswick County, especially in light of the fact that our NC legislature is working on North Carolina Senate Bill 89, which would make these private funds illegal. It has been widely communicated through the New York Post and former federal election officials that the near $400 million that Zuckerberg spent to help finance local elections was a carefully orchestrated attempt to influence the 2020 vote. My view and the view of many others in Brunswick County is that this is a carefully coordinated attempt to convert our Brunswick County Board of Elections office into a get out the vote operation for one political party over another, and to insert political operatives into our election office in order to influence and manipulate the outcome of the upcoming 2024 election. All our elections are too important to allow for such a possible takeover of our election office. The agreement between these nonprofit groups to receive their Zuckerbucks should be nullified immediately. Attendance with U.S. Alliance for Election Excellence on May 22nd to 24 should be terminated. I am requesting that you review this bad decision and reverse it. We don't need Chicago politics in Brunswick County. No matter what outcomes are achieved in future Brunswick County elections, there will be those who will question the BOE's decision to accept Zuckerbucks. What were the effects of that decision on our local elections? Okay, and there is one more, I believe, and this is from Gary Ostby. And his statement is, last month I shared about the different states moving to only use voting machines that use no foreign made parts. It was indicated that my comments would be forwarded to the NCSBE. Have you received any response? I would like to request that your tabulator vendor, Hart InterCivic, be contacted for clarity on, do the Brunswick County tabulators have any foreign made components? Are there any plans to certify the Brunswick County tabulators to the EAC 2021 standards? Are there any plans to design tabulators with no foreign components? And if so, when are they projected to be available? Those are all of the online public comments.
Okay, anybody else? All right. We'll move into the director's report.
Okay.
I want, before you get there, I want to apologize to Mr. Pelton that I indicated that you were trying to quieten anybody. I like for the people to be able to speak their piece, and then we go about our business. So I'm sorry, sir.
Not a problem.
Not a problem. Madam Director.
Okay. In the director's report, you do have included in your agenda packet the latest voter registration statistics for February. I'm sorry, Ed.
I apologize.
Yeah.
I apologize, but at the excuse me. Well, we'll work it out. The last question from Mr. Osteen.
Ostby.
Osteen, I apologize. We said that when he brought the question, then we were going to send it to the state board to do that. Did we do that?
I believe so. I'd have to go back and check.
Good. Okay.
Because he and I had a conversation on the phone the next day or the day of that board meeting.
Right.
And I thought we clarified some things. So I'm not sure that I did forward that to the state, but if not, I will.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Okay. So you do have the most recent voter registration statistics. I do want to provide you with an update on the early voting location in Southport. As previously reported, we do have a very congested location there at the Brunswick Center at Southport. That is a strip mall, essentially. There are doctor's offices, a pharmacy, restaurants, and a hotel, all right there trying to use that parking lot. In the 2022 general election, the town received some complaints from citizens and business owners about the congestion during early voting. Based on that feedback, we did try to find alternative locations for early voting. We attempted to work with St. James to use their community center. They did offer us the use of a room in their town hall. We did determine that that is not a sufficient amount of space for us to use for early voting. We, at this point, are going to have to remain at the Brunswick Center at Southport. We are working with the staff on site there to try to find better ways to maintain the crowd, such as blocking off that side service road with barricades and allowing voters to line up down there instead of in front of all the businesses. We've identified a sort of a mini parking lot at the very end that we will work to ask all poll workers to park in. And then we're going to try to rethink how we do curbside voting there. So hopefully with some of those things in place, we can alleviate some of the concerns. Okay. And before I get to the Alliance, I do want to update. I failed to mention this and put it in my director's report for the agenda packet. So there are handouts back there. We are launching a big outreach effort this year. And the first item in that outreach effort is going to be the first in a series of election education seminars. So we're going to be holding one on March 30th from 5:30 to 6:30 here in the commissioners' chambers. People could also log in via Zoom and watch that virtually. So what that first series is going to cover is basically an introduction to elections for someone that doesn't really know how elections work in Brunswick County. We'll talk about state and county boards, local elections team, types of elections, districts, and who is eligible to vote. So that will be a very high level overview of elections in Brunswick County. Okay. Ryan, I'm going to need the TV on.
I saw that on Twitter.
Well,
Yeah. I had hoped to have the full calendar of events because we do have events scheduled starting this month and going all the way through the end of the year. And then the board had asked me previously, and I don't know if there's still a wish that I cover this. The board wanted me to talk a little bit about our participation with the U.S. Alliance for Election Excellence and some of the outputs that we have seen in working with the partner organization. So I was still going to cover that if that is the will of the board.
sure.
Okay. Some of the concerns that I've heard has to do with the partner organizations. And so what I did was I went back and I wanted to just highlight some of the outputs that we have received in working with these partner organizations
When you
prior.
say partner organizations, can
Yes.
you put it in?
So the
street terms?
U.S. Alliance for Election Excellence has, I believe, 9 partner organizations that all come together and provide their expertise, essentially. So the Center for Civic Design is one of those partner organizations, and they have templates that can be used by elections offices. And so I used one of their templates ahead of the primary election last year to create a pocket voter guide. So a small foldable piece of paper that had all of the pertinent information that a voter would need to participate in the election. I essentially took their guide, plugged Brunswick County information in, and it was ready to go. So I have used their pocket voter guide. And then I didn't realize we didn't have the large drop-down screen where this would be a little larger. The Center for Civic Design has also worked with the State Board of Elections to do an overhaul of our absentee return envelope. This is a previous envelope, and you can tell, even though you can't see it, there is a lot going on there. The top box is where the voter would sign, but they would also have been required to put a check mark. And the bottom is where 2 witnesses would have had to sign. And it was very difficult for the witnesses to include all of the required information in those boxes, which resulted in absentee ballots not being accepted. And so with the help of the Center for Civic Design and the State Board of Elections, in conjunction with their hub program, so people from county boards of elections, including our own Adrienne Rushton, they overhauled that envelope to make it really easy for a user to know how they need to fill it out. So that top block shows now the voter signature is very apparent where a voter needs to sign. It's highlighted in yellow. The witness information towards the bottom, anything required is now highlighted in yellow, and they have a full line to include their information. So that was another output from the Center for Civic Design. And again, that was prior to our affiliation with the Alliance. There is a county that worked with the Alliance as part of the Alliance to overhaul a vote by mail postcard that they were required to send by law. The card on the left, you will see the information that they were required to provide by law. And on the right, you will see how the Center for Civic Design took that information and made it into a more palatable format so that a voter could look at it and know exactly what they were meant to do. And then they also updated the part that the voter would fill out. And I am very excited when I saw on the right-hand side, the X where the voter signs. That's essentially the box that we used on our absentee voter application when they redesigned that. It is important to say that the Center for Civic Design did not come into Macoupin County, Illinois, and give them the postcard that they needed to use. The postcard design was actually done by staff at the county level. What the Center for Civic Design did was they came in and they taught the staff members how to perform usability testing on documents that they are creating. So how do you put a document in front of a voter and get feedback that you can use to make sure that that form is in the best possible state that everybody could understand? So the outcome for them was they learned how to do usability testing. Elections group, we have partnered with the elections group starting last year. One of my favorite outputs that we got, you'll see on the right-hand side, as a Brunswick County Standards of Conduct. We turned that into a poster and we included it in poll worker training because it really stands to show what we expect each and every precinct official to have in terms of professionalism, integrity, honesty, teamwork. And we talked about that in each of our trainings. And so I really liked what they did with that poster, and we blew it up and we framed it in our training room for all poll workers to see. At the top left, you will see social media posts. They actually had a guide, the elections group, with suggested posts for each day leading up to an election or each week. And I was able to go take the graphics and plug in Brunswick County information and get social media posts out really quickly without putting a lot of thought into it. And as you know, in the middle of an election, social media is probably at the bottom of my list of things I have time to do. So I thought that was really nice. And I also received some help writing a guest column. I think there was some pushback about me using some help to write a column for the newspaper. I am not a writer. I did not go to school for literature. I am not a journalist. I know elections. And so I did need some help to put that in a format that would resonate with the people that read it. So the elections group has people on staff that are former journalists, and they worked with me to tweak this guest column, which I thought conveyed really important information to all voters in Brunswick County that may not be following us on social media. I've learned over the years that we may have a presence on social media and we may have information on our website, but not everybody is coming to find that information. We need to be sure to put it where the voters are. And I wanted to talk a little bit about the trip we took to Chicago. So as you know, 3 of us went to Chicago for the first in-person convening of all of the centers. And so I just wanted to talk a little bit about what we got out of that. We were able to meet other county election officials and have discussion about what some of their best practices were. We got copies of tabletop exercises that a county is using internally with their staff to go through scenarios ahead of election day and make sure that the staff is aware of exactly what they need to do should an emergent situation arise. Scenarios like the power at this polling place went out. What exactly does everybody need to do? And it makes sure that everybody on the full-time staff in the office knows what to do, and it's not just up to the director to make those decisions. We have gotten information from a county that we met about what de-escalation materials they provide to their precinct workers ahead of an election. That we think is going to be really helpful. We don't need to start from scratch with that. I was able to network with someone that served as president of a clerks association. And as you all know, I am hoping to become the president of the North Carolina Directors Association. And I really don't know what that means or what I get to do with that. And so having someone that has done that before in another state and kind of revamped their association, that networking opportunity is going to be really helpful. The next steps, the Alliance is going to be getting these centers together to focus in on poll worker recruitment, training, and retention. And then there have been some questions about the money that has come into Brunswick County from the Alliance. And I just wanted to highlight that the only money that has come in from the Alliance is the travel costs for the 3 staff members to attend that in-person convening in Chicago, which totaled just over $2,000. That's all I had.
Okay.
That was director's report, and that's
okay.
all I have.
Go ahead, board. Any questions, director?
Mr. Chairman, I have a request for the gentleman from the media in the back. I don't know whether you heard Sarah's discussion about the upcoming seminars that she is planning, but we request maybe perhaps, and I'm not sure who you're with. Are you WECT? Okay. If WECT could possibly do some public service announcements and help us to publicize this upcoming series of educational events, we'd appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else, any other questions for Sarah regarding anything that she's presented today? Or anything that she has not presented today, that she's presented on another day? Any questions? Right. With that, we're moving to old business. I don't see anything set for old business. I don't recall anything. If not, we'll move on to item number 7. And with item number 7, Madam Director.
Last night at the Brunswick County Board of Commissioners meeting, a resolution was passed unanimously. You have a copy of that. I did also send a copy by email to each of the board members when I got it. And I put this on the agenda so that the board had space to discuss it.
Mr. Chairman, if I might.
Yes, absolutely.
I think the most critical item in the resolution that came out of last night's commissioners meeting was the item that's at the bottom of the first page, and I'll read that. Further, it resolved that the Brunswick County Board of Commissioners directs the Brunswick County staff to work with the director of the Brunswick County Board of Elections to identify suitable alternatives to the Alliance and to include reasonable membership dues and travel expenses in Brunswick County Board of Elections budget to cover the elections director's participation in a suitable organization. It is my understanding that our association with the Alliance, there were two possible paths. One of them, they were offering grants And if I read their website correctly, Brunswick County would have qualified for up to $1.5 million in a grant, which would be money to defer the expenses associated with balloting itself. It's also my understanding that we never intended or we declined any of that money before we really even got going with the Alliance Association. The other part of that is the ability of our staff to interact with other election staffs from around the country to identify best practices and to be able to implement those improvements, and Sarah's already talked about some of them, to the benefit of the Brunswick County Board of Elections. Before you, there's a copy of a resolution which I've prepared, and I have other copies, and Sarah, can you, anybody in the audience would like one? And everybody has a copy. And without reading the whole thing in its entirety, the objective was to try to work with other organizations to be able to improve our performance. And what I'd like to concentrate is the last two paragraphs that be resolved that Brunswick County Board of Elections to terminate its participation in the U.S. Alliance for Elections, and resolved that in addition to the directors, staff members of the Brunswick County Board of Elections who have achieved certification as North Carolina's elections administrators shall also participate in the training offered by the suitable alternative organizations. I think that would be able to achieve the goal of being able to have our staff interact with other staffs to identify best practices and implement those things that are going to improve the processes here in Brunswick County, and also alleviate the concern of some that we are accepting what they call as dark money. I offer the resolution for discussion and approval.
I have a comment.
Yes.
Or a question or something along those lines.
Go ahead.
Are there alternative organizations to the Alliance?
So there are alternative nationwide organizations. The one that comes to mind is called the Election Center, and it is through Auburn University, and local election administrators can become certified through them. They take classes and go to conferences. The difference is there's not really a workshopping of ideas. It's more conference and then the networking you get in between sessions, but that would probably be what comes to mind as the most comparable nationwide opportunity.
So it doesn't have like breakout sessions with other directors from other states, from other elections?
I'm not really sure. I haven't participated before, but I do know the conferences are multiple days and they include, I think they build in networking opportunities like evening events and dinners all together instead of everyone doing their own thing. So
it's sponsored by a university.
Yes, Auburn University.
I think my concern with this is that we need to not be associated with any national organization. That the only groups that we should associate with are, I guess my initial reaction was only other counties in Board of Election counties in North Carolina. I think that could include Board of Elections in other states. But we probably need to try to avoid anything that is a national organization. I'm not quite so sure about the university. That might not, maybe that's a neutral type of thing that's primarily educational. But I think we we got a lot of feedback on this one in particular, but I think you would get feedback on any organization, whether they're right wing, left wing, middle wing. I think they all have perhaps good intentions. I think you learn some things. I guess I'll make another thought. It's a digression from this. You pointed out some things that where you needed expert help, and those are pretty general, common things that are experts. You might want to, and they're things that probably everybody needs. And it sounded to me like the state doesn't have those. You know, they help you with design, for instance. That's simply people that are experts in design. Obviously, the state didn't do a very good job on those, and they improved it. Perhaps suggesting to the state that they have people on the staff, or they contract with people that could help with that, might be a way to improve things within the state without some other organization. They have a reporter there that probably could help you with writing things, or they could get somebody, but probably every county needs help. I mean, obviously, most of us are not very good at writing things, and having things in the newspaper is important. So that might be an alternative that everybody in the state needs. You aren't the only one that needs those kind of things. So those might be learning things that solution is to get the state to provide those for you.
I think in order for the state to be able to provide the help that we need, they need to be fully staffed, and they're not right now. They have had trouble getting the funding to put bodies in chairs in the office to do the things that need to be done. The communications director at the state right now, I think last time I spoke to him, he was down to a team of 2. And most of his days are spent doing public records requests and things like that, not doing some of this nice to have outputs that would actually help us. So,
well, but those are important things.
They are, yes.
And the one on design of things and things like that, that probably contracted somebody. There's a lot of design people out there that, would just be experts at design. It's a fairly simple, straightforward thing for some people, not necessarily for the state. But some of those things that you learned a lot from and gained could be done in different ways. But I think we need to avoid anything that's a national type of an organization and restricted to other boards of election. I'm not sure how to modify what Randy wrote here, but my intent would be to try to make sure that otherwise you're gonna, if it isn't this group, it's going to be another group. I don't think you can win on that.
Mr. Lewis?
Yes. I have to confess that to me, this is a major decision. And I've just received, and within the last few hours, I've just received the document from the commissioners. Read it. I'd like to reread it again. I've just received Randy's proposal resolution here. And I don't want to rush to judgment. I really want to analyze this a bit more. And because I do think it's a major decision. I do think that it's good to work with other Board of Elections across the nation, whether it's with the Alliance or with the Election Center or with whatever. Okay, I think that's good. But let us look at it and analyze who we should work with. Okay. I think would be better than just making a quick decision one way or the other at this particular board meeting.
Ms. Clerk?
Oh, my question is, what type of a void would this leave if we are forced, is voted that you are to resign from this organization? What kind of void would it leave within the Brunswick County Board of Elections?
What kind of void would it leave?
Because you've been getting input, I mean, you've been getting, input from them.
I don't know that I could answer that because if I'm not going to those events, like the next segment that they were going to talk about was precinct officials, recruitment, training. I couldn't possibly know what they would have to offer if I'm not there to see it, do you know what I mean? So that I really can't quantify that.
No, that's
Yeah.
a good, that's a
Mhm.
fine answer. Thank you.
Yeah, I think that's, you think of the things that you suggested, if you hadn't been there,
Mhm.
you wouldn't
Yeah.
know what you were missing, but I think we've got to avoid that, and I think personally, we need to terminate our relationship with them and anybody else that, that's a national organization other than boards of election.
Mr. Lewis?
Would terminate, which, I'm sorry, Stuart, I didn't quite understand that. Terminate what?
I think we need to terminate immediately our association with the election excellence group and any other national organization other than boards of election.
I gotta, excuse me, make a comment here. Asked last Friday, I spoke with Sarah and asked her to put this item on the agenda under director's report to discuss this whole issue. I know that we just kind of rubber stamped or just nodded approval of this process throughout this process. And I said, well, maybe Friday, maybe we need to discuss it more thoroughly here. And then, of course, Saturday, I get email from Stuart. And then, of course, the last couple of days, had an avalanche of information. And my position is, if this was sold to us as a good thing and it was not problematic, and it was, and how did it go from a good thing to a bad thing? And maybe we were naive in believing that some organization had the best interest of the election process at heart, and maybe they didn't have special interest, but most organizations have special interests. So that's to be, that having that been said, these opportunities, these networking opportunities, and I think from what I gather, and correct me if I'm wrong, the commissioner's resolution as it relates to us is item that you read, item strictly, the Board of County Commissioners directs to find other sources of funding to pursue their educational opportunities. Is that correct?
I don't think it's not other sources of funding. I think that the commissioners are going to fund our staff.
Well, that's what I meant, that we would, then the board, don't get me wrong, Brunswick County Board of Commissioners have been thoroughly, completely supported us financially in every way. And I don't think we have to seek outside funding sources, because I think they're going to make sure we're fully funded because if election falls apart, they don't fall apart because they didn't do something on their part financially. So I'm sure that that's in their best interest. So my question is they're asking, they've got a lot of whereas, but as far as it relates to us, the financial part, is that correct?
If I understand you correctly, yes, the commissioners have directed the administration to fund this.
Okay, right. Well, alternative to the last for funding sources. Now, then your resolution says we will disassociate ourselves completely from the alliance, completely, not just funding, but we'll just completely disassociate ourselves from the alliance.
I think as I understand the concerns of Sykes and some of the other folks who have expressed those recently, is they have concerns that the political affiliation and the political point of view of the alliance and some of its partners, not all, but some, may have a negative influence or a negative impact on the staff and the results of the elections going forward. And I'm probably not saying that very well, but
Okay, so, and I tend to agree with Mr. Lewis. I just got your resolution here about
well,
30 minutes ago. I got the one from
that's
the
up-
commissioners.
the ink is still wet.
Yes, it is. The commissioners sooner. Now, understand, I don't have any problem separating myself from an organization that's providing financial resources. But I don't want to act like a knee-jerk reaction and say, well, we're not only going to disassociate ourselves from the financial source, we're going to dissociate ourselves from the organization altogether because of what's floating around. I don't know anything. That's why I asked Sarah to put on the agenda. I don't know much about all that's going on. But what if we adopt resolution to dissociate ourselves, and next week or you get a phone call from some of your organizations saying, why'd you do that? You know, you get people from Raleigh or from the state board or county, your county that you answer to, that why did you do that? You need to reverse that decision. So with that being said, I have no problem with separating myself from the financial opportunity today. I would like to conclude and the remainder of this association and at least by the next meeting. So that's my situation. Go ahead.
Are we tabling this until next
No,
meeting?
I think we should. I would be fine with a motion today to address the commissioner's resolution that says we would remove ourselves from any financial consideration and any financial benefits and consider our disassociation from the organization at our next meeting. So if that's called table, I guess that's what we're doing. We're
I'd like to ask.
Could I ask perhaps if we do table this until the next meeting, that's about a month.
Let me say this, suspend our relationship with the Alliance until the next meeting.
Okay. Well, would this give you an opportunity to research what other alternatives may be out there? And could you report back to us next month on what you've found, if anything?
Mhm.
Okay,
Yes, sir.
thank you.
It would seem to me though, this before coming into the next meeting, if we do table this, before coming into the next meeting, if we would be provided information, the board, so we would, before then, that sufficient time for us to
Yes.
review it and analyze it.
Yes, I did not have that luxury this time, as you know. I think that
The meeting was
resolution
last night, so-
passed about 7:45 last night. so,
Yes.
yeah.
And I have to be perfectly honest with you folks. I finished typing my first draft of this about 11 o'clock this morning. So when I said the ink was still wet, it probably was.
Yes.
Well, let me tell you, you did a much better job drafting a resolution than I could have ever done.
Well, I have to admit that I stole part of it from the commissioner's resolution. And our director helped correct my grammar and put it in a more sensible format than I had it. Thank you.
Go ahead.
Yes. Over this next month, did you say suspend our action with our affiliation with the Alliance?
My preference would be to remove ourselves from any financial commitment and suspend any activity until the next meeting, when we'll consider our relationship with the Alliance. So yes, I guess what I'm saying is we won't have any relationship with them for the next 30 days until we've had opportunity to realize, see what's, what is at stake here, what benefits we're losing and this board and we work so hard to make sure people are confident in this election process. And to create any doubt, I wouldn't want to create a doubt of the integrity of a Brunswick County election in nobody's mind. And I need to get it clarified in my mind that that's not happening, but I don't think we've compromised anything or any process, but I just need to know that.
I would agree with that.
I think
Yeah,
the
that's-
problem is perception.
Mhm.
And
What if the
fact is
perception's
that
only from
that's-
one
that's
side
That's why I
of
wrote
the
this
aisle?
Piece of paper, perception. Go ahead.
If it's only one party that has the bad perception, the other party doesn't have that perception. That's what my problem is with this whole thing. Everything's coming from the one side. I haven't heard somebody from the other side come in. Now, if we have that, I would be more apt to vote for something like this. But with only hearing from one side, if I have people from my party come in here and state that they think this thing is a bad news, I have no problem with it. But as it is right now, I'm sorry, I have a problem with what's going on right now, including suspending any association with the organization. So.
Yes, sir.
Sarah, could I ask you a quick question?
Yes, sir.
Over the next month.
Yeah.
Are there meetings scheduled with the Alliance or the activities?
Our next in-person convening is scheduled to be in May. So no.
Okay, so we should be okay.
Are there any other obligations we would have to fulfill?
No, they have started talking with us about the content of the next convening, which is dealing with poll workers. Just gauging what we do and how we manage it. So the response to that is the only thing outstanding right now with the Alliance.
And obviously, since we're going from a 6-person staff to a 400 to 450 person operating staff at election time, that recruiting and training personnel for poll workers is obviously a critical item of interest to everybody. It's ongoing, never stops. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. I'd just like to clarify for the folks in the audience and anybody who might be working online. There are some folks who expressed their concern in the comments that Sarah read and the comments that we heard today about the integrity of the elections. And I just want to make sure that, this is North Carolina election law, fairly thick. This is the Bible. And this is what we go by. The board and the staff operates by this book. Not what some organization in Chicago or California, whoever wants us to do. We go by what the North Carolina legislature wants us to do and the North Carolina State Board of Elections wants us to do. And when we say, we're by the book, that's the book. Thank you.
Okay.
So we're tabling this until the next meeting. Is that correct?
I need somebody to make a motion that how they want to handle it. I see this two separate items, the commissioner's resolution and your resolution.
Well, I don't know that we really have an action associated with the commissioner's resolution other than acknowledging that we've received it.
Okay.
I look.
Why ignore it?
Well, I think we can acknowledge that we received it, we've taken under consideration, and we've prepared a motion or a resolution for the board's consideration, and we are still considering that. I don't know what the Madam Attorney at the end, what would be the proper legal?
Well, make a motion to table the resolution as drafted by Randy Pelton in response to the resolution from the county commissioners of March 20th. So that would be one motion, and the second would be, in my opinion, would be if we were going to continue to accept help from the Alliance, would be a separate motion that we should decide concurrently with the resolution that Randy presented to us. So that's how I interpret it for today.
One other question, Sarah.
Yes.
When did the commissioners approve the budget?
When do they approve our budget? June? Emily is past.
June.
She's gone. I believe June.
Mr. Chairman, may I make one?
Yes, sir.
I make a motion that we acknowledge the receipt of the commissioner's resolution back to them. I would also add that we table Randy's resolution until the next meeting. In the meantime, Sarah will be working with us, getting additional information that will help us make a decision at the next meeting.
Is that one resolution or two?
One.
Okay.
Okay,
One motion.
one motion.
One motion, okay.
It's discussion. I see this as us taking about 30 days to get our head wrapped around all this. Is that correct? Okay. Any further discussion? Not all in favor of the motion, you might say an aye.
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 Opposed? I'm sorry. All opposed?
No.
No, let the record show that motion carried 4-1. Mr. Smith. Okay,
And
go ahead.
I would like to make the motion regarding the Association of Brunswick County Board of Brunswick County Elections with the Alliance. If that will not, that is not suspended during this 30-day period. That's what I'm,
Okay, say that again.
that the Brunswick County Board of Elections does not sever its relationship with the Alliance during the 30-day period where we're considering the resolution presented by Randy.
You're the attorney. Was that not covered in
Yeah,
Mr.
since that was part of my resolution, by tabling the resolution, doesn't that table that clause of the resolution?
Okay, so as long as.
I don't know, I'm asking. I really don't know.
Because that was something we had discussed separately. That's why I
Okay,
thought it would be proper to make a separate
so, okay.
motion, but if you feel that the original motion would satisfy that, then I have no problem with that either.
Yeah, I'm not the attorney. I never played an attorney on TV. And
That's not true.
Well, for clarification, we're not going to take any money for the next 30 days. Is that
Correct. No,
No money in the next 30 days. There's no source, no type.
No.
We got a relationship with the Alliance and we're tabling that for further consideration. And we received the commissioner's resolution under advisement at this time. Is that clear? Yes. Does everybody agree on that? And that motion is 4-1. Okay.
I guess. Well, no, I was going to suggest something, but I think I'll keep it to myself.
And there's no better time than now. Go ahead. Okay. Is there any other business before the board? Your motion to adjourn.
So moved.
I got a motion. All in favor, somebody saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. Thank you, everybody, for your interest. And we'll see